The learner, be prepared to have previous patriot beliefs stripped away. Many patriots are addicted to the process and philosophy that's not compatible with commerce. This is their right, and the philosophy may be totally correct, but useless in admiralty or for the goals they have set. But when they visit Yahoo groups and complain that their acceptances and setoffs haven't worked, it shows a disconnect with the basic reason and logic. Number 2, the person must be patient. It takes a good 6 months to a year to really cover the necessary information, and maybe longer for it to sink in and become reflex. On the other hand, the search could go on for decades without finding a remedy. As many patriots have learned the hard way, cracking the matrix is like trying to decrypt the most complicated cipher without a key. Diabolical men created it. Number 3, the person must be able to embrace the beginner's mind. They must be able to accept in their own mind that they probably know very little about areas they think they should understand or they think they understand. This is huge. The ones with the intellect and persistence to understand trust and securities to the degree that they have are really the best candidates. Some of those are posting in this group, but that same confidence is what blocks some people from making the mental commitment to learn the truth. Those who welcome and thirst for new information are gems. So, in other words, keep an open mind. Pretend that you're a beginner. Strip everything you thought you knew, all right? Because this information came directly from a lead IRS agent, okay? He was a defector. I call him an IRS defector. And he grew with great discontent and disdain for the system before he defected. And he said, fuck it. I'm going to show the people how to do this shit. Because it's real, it exists, and quite frankly, the people who devised the system were diabolical. So he felt the need to redeem himself, perhaps. I don't know, maybe he was just fucking bored, and he thought he'd show a couple people how to do this. Nevertheless, this is where you're getting the information from, the third hand at this point. So take it for what it's worth, but keep an open mind, all right? The person must be of good temperament. So many patriots are haters. They hate commerce without understanding it. They hate moderators. The Father warned us about a gossiping tongue. The person must have faith in the Father, their teacher, and their own capacity to learn and perform. A doomsday thinker is not likely to succeed in court. Number 6, the person cannot think they have a right to work. The person cannot think that they have a right to the work produced or products of others. This is a problem for many patriots. When I was an apprentice, my first boss taught me the value of commanding a fair quote. Lowball quotes led to lowball customers. Words to remember. The guys at trade school who dropped out were the ones who were on tuition assistance from the state. Number 7, the person must accept responsibility for his own actions. Those who cast blame make poor candidates to become Neo. The majority of the patriot problem occurs because people are impatient or short-sighted. Look how many have stopped paying their taxes, credit cards, and mortgages without a clue as to how to do it or what to do if the predictable happens. How many used 1099s because their buddies did? Number 8, the person need not be courageous, all right? In other words, you don't have to experiment, just pay attention. The knowledge sets them free. This is what I look for when I ask to make an introduction so people don't waste their time. I know a handful of people at most who possess this information and the qualities to share it completely, or who are qualified to share it completely. Special deposit is a broad legal concept. Take a few hours to review so it is in the marrow. It is the critical element in rebuffing the courts, offsetting liens, and such, and yet most patriots never heard of it. It's in the black hole where the real remedies lie, while most of you skirmish or scraps from the table. Special deposit, a deposit made of a particular thing with the depository. It is distinguished from an irregular deposit. Number 2, when a thing has been specially deposited with a depository, the title to it remains with the depositor, and if it should be lost, the loss will fall upon him. When, on the contrary, the deposit is irregular, as where money is deposited in a bank, the title to which is transferred to the bank. If it be lost, the loss will be borne by the bank. This will result from the same principle. The loss will fall in both instances on the owner of the thing, according to the rules res paret dominio. See Bovier's Institutions on Law 1054. Or a special deposit consists in the placing of a specific kinds of money or property in the possession of the bank, with an obligation of the bank to return the identical thing deposited, the depositor retaining title. Okay, so there's a difference between general deposit and special deposit. Special deposit means that it's not commingled with the general deposits, okay? And if you do a special deposit, the bank is going to give you specifically what you gave them back. They're going to put it in a special drawer and they're going to safeguard it, all right? In a special deposit, monies as bills and packages or species in boxes, for example, are entrusted to a bank, not to be used, but to be kept safely and specifically returned. Such a deposit of specie or other funds for safekeeping and return creates the relationship between the depositor and the bank of the bailer and bailee. Where money is left with a bank with the understanding and agreement that it is to be devoted to some particular purpose, such as to be paid over to some third person on presentation of certain papers, it constitutes a special deposit and is held by the bank as agent of the depositor. The distinctive feature of a special deposit is that the identical money is to be kept apart from the general funds of the bank, so that it can be returned to the depositor or used for a specific purpose for which it was deposited. The intentions of the parties controls, and in the absence of a fact from which it can be found that the parties intended that the fund was deposited for safekeeping and return, or to be devoted to a specific purpose then agreed upon, it will be held to be a general deposit. Special deposit. You retain title to the deposit and the funds are safeguarded. General deposit, the title is transferred to the bank and the funds are commingled with the public funds. In short, in their system, everything's a security feature, everything's a trust, all demonstrated in their law, and special deposit is how the trust property is handled. Again, this is not about sovereignty, folks. Hold on, let me scroll up. This is not about sovereignty, folks. You are all sovereign, but you are not being taken into court. The Sestake trust is, but the trust is not yours. Only the estate within it is. So think, people, what do we need to do to take control? All this sovereignty stuff, although true, does not apply here in the court, as the system is de facto, not de jure. So here we have someone claiming that the statutes don't apply to the sovereign, yet they quote state to support the sovereign position. Put aside all the sovereignty stuff. The courts don't recognize it. The defendant is not sovereign, so it is irrelevant. The only thing that matters is that the estate, the claim on the estate, the trespass, and entitlement are all admiralty. It's an admiralty system. It's like trying to use a football to play baseball. It doesn't work. Now, if you are the plaintiff, you can convene whatever kind of court you want. The word status does not mean sovereignty, common law, postmaster, kingdom of heaven, Turtle Island, or living on the county. Those may be fine concepts, but they have not relevance to the desire to rule admiralty and commercial. For our purpose, the concept of status means the prestige to control the admiralty, standing developed using the public's own rules and regulations, qualifications to cash out entirely if you so choose. Yes, it has been done. And mandatory credentials. Mandatory credentials required by the agency's CRA to recognize our priority claim and process our set-offs, acceptances, refunds, recoupments, directives, exchanges, dispositions, special deposits, claims, acquisitions, foreclosures, and revestitures. That little list of transactions is a formidable arsenal. It's all one needs to function in society, control property, and repel trespassers. If you understand the requirements and processes for making them happen, then you don't need to be reading this. But if you do not, then the significance of these transactions will remain elusive until you do. This is why I say that understanding is 98% of the remedy. It's really that simple. You do not become Neo on templates and emails with masteries of your securities and the trust they create. It doesn't matter if you are dragged into court and ironed, slapped with a summons, foreclosed, liened, or visited by the CID. Each one of those events is another opportunity to teach the public that the price is too high to mess with you because you are in charge, and they will know it the second after you open your mouth. It's the knowledge, the confidence, the look in your eye, the ability to enforce on the fly. Without understanding, you are likely to fold your cards at the first challenge when your heart seizes in your chest. It's the difference between Bruce Lee and everyone else. As to the consensus, I know a handful of people at most qualified to teach these things. It easily takes about 20 to 40 hours of discussion to gain a handle, depending on intelligence, intellect, and experience, and another 40 to 80 hours of home study and confirmation for reasonable understanding, or substantially more if you intend to read the actual laws in their entirety and the many fine books on admiralty, trust, banking, estate, tax, and contract law. It all depends on one's threshold for mastery. Do you want to master any court situation, get annual refunds, exploit the banking advantages, master it all? You get out what you put in, until one day the memories of your floundering are too weak to recall. What I have given you is a truthful roadmap to freedom and peace. It may seem like a lot of effort to control a system that belongs to us, but I see it as a tiny sacrifice compared to 10 years of higher education or the decades some of us have spent chasing our tails. For me, the one thing that was most tangible when I finally got it was the sense that I was no longer spinning my wheels. At that point, truth became self-evident, and you no longer need a mentor to steer you straight. This was the Lord's doing by having blessed me with a wonderful teacher who, for some reason, decided to pull back the curtains she had spent years protecting. The major problem is that you didn't have a process at all, or rudimentary understanding of the arena or the remedy. The court sees that you are operating on a few scant threads of information. You see, the trust wasn't created by your notice. Notice is a trust directive from the beneficiary. The trust was created by the deposit of a complaint into the court's books. That's when they issued a case bond to Fidelity. As I've posted before, the complaint is the initiating security future. You didn't understand how to control that deposit, how to convert the trust from implied to express, how to exchange securities, and how to advise them on the tax reporting. You didn't defeat the presumptions that they are the beneficiary and you are the trustee. They are no proxies in place to enforce. And if you are the grantor, why would you ask them to appoint a fiduciary? Without knowing it, you turned any possible remedy on its ear by doing that. And so on, and so on. A knowledgeable grantor would have set all of this right at the beginning and demonstrated the dire consequences if they trespass on the beneficiary's funds. It's not pretty, and they know it. From their perspective, you are a trustee gone bad, seeking to hoard funds that belong to the beneficiary. They also know they can walk all over you. I don't mean any of this to be critical. We weren't born with this information. I was blessed with a wonderful teacher who decided to come over to the other side. But I hope it's clear why I've been saying that understanding is 98% of the remedy. The real lesson, as I see it, is this. To all the folks at all the groups discussing how to do this and that, and then trying those things without really knowing what they are doing, don't do it. And if you do, be prepared to accept full responsibility for your actions. Don't blame the gurus, the other group members, or Lucifer. The Father permitted Lucifer to thrive in the hope that we would choose our pathway wisely. You know who cares about names? The judges who's trying to bake your cookie. He wants a name so he can play the game. The coupon is the asset that balances the liabilities represented by the bill itself, keeping the net worth equation balanced on the vendor's books. The bill is a trust indenture containing the terms of the trust being established by the delivery of the coupon security to you. See Title 15 U.S.C. subsection 77CCC. People have been skirting around this information for years without truly understanding it because they had no knowledge that it was a security feature or that a trust relationship was being created. Like any security asset, the coupon is just waiting to be guaranteed by a banker's acceptance, which then becomes the new security feature, which transfers the obligation to perform to the drawee. Keep in mind, sending these things to the CEO is a joke. Little chance they will process them other than the occasional fluke. The problem is the flukes lead everyone else to the false conclusion. What you seek is dependable set-off until unit for unit. The straw man isn't a banker, and neither are you. In their eyes, no matter what you've been led to believe, To be a banker in their system, you'd have to be a fiction, but we can certainly engage proxies to serve that role. http://financial-dictionary, thefreedictionary.com/coupon or coupon, however you want to say it. Oh, let's get into it. Coupon, the contractual interest obligation a bond or debenture issuer covenants to pay to its debt holders. Coupon, the interest paid on a bond. That is, the coupon is the amount that the issuer must pay to the holder of each bond in exchange for investing in that bond. Coupons usually are paid every 6 months. They are called coupons because formerly they were represented by physical coupons on the bond certificate that had to be clipped and returned to the issuer to receive the interest payment. With the advent of computers, this has become much less common. Coupon, number one. We're going to go through a couple definitions of coupon here. Bear with me. The annual interest paid on a debt security. A coupon is usually stated in the terms of a related paid on a bond's face value. For example, a 9% coupon, $1,000 principal amount bond would pay its owner $90 in interest annually. A coupon is set at the time a security is issued and, for most bonds, stays the same until maturity. 2. The detachable part of a coupon bond that must be presented for payment every 6 months in order to receive interest. See also clip, coupon clipping, Wall Street Words, and A to Z Guide to Investment Terms for Today's Investors by David L. Scott. No surprise that our core beliefs spill over into the matrix under the public policy, Public Law 7310. Everything is supposed to be an even exchange of securities. House Joint Resolution 192 is not about insurance or other patriot beliefs. When we exchange securities evenly with no gain, the exchange is tax exempt and we all sleep better. If the exchange is uneven, then someone owes taxes because somebody has a capital gains. Now, why do you think people have problems with the agencies and the banks? Uneven exchanges, because our own books to go out of balance, the uneven exchange causes our own books to go out of balance. This is why we owe the taxes most of the time. Everything I've been stating at this group is based upon even exchange. That's the Lord's plan as I see it. In the Bible, payment was almost always with goods. The only I wouldn't barter with is him. I've heard many patriots say it's all about taxes. In most cases, they are simply quoting Gene Keating. I've heard very few patriots actually articulate why. We owe taxes because our books are out of balance and balance due to an imbalance in the exchange. For instance, the court gives you nothing in exchange for you using your credit to issue the court bond. Then it acquires the bond on a 1099. We no longer have an asset on our books, and presto, an instant unbalanced book unless we correct it, which creates a tax liability. I had a friend who used to fix his plumbing with a hammer. The last time he was working on a gas heater with a cigarette in his mouth, true story, asking them to appoint a fiduciary is the hammer. Appointing them as a trustee would be a wrench, a good start point. One thing I see all the time when they give me a bill for 100,000, I look at it as 100 units to be offset from the ledger to another. The word dollar is an emotional trigger. I'm here to collect the bond, strictly business. We keep the executor out of things mostly because it takes the message off track. Technically, an executor is a trustee. He holds legal title. He has the obligation of performance, which means he's screwed most of the time. But if you're clever, a grantor, the entity that gives the order to lucubratus, can do all the magic tricks you might wish to attribute to the executor, and it holds equitable interest. If he is also the beneficiary, and as all those folks who lost their houses to MERS can tell you, a security interest trumps ownership and any day of the week. Notice I didn't say that we were the grantor. Here's a riddle. We are and we are not. Oh, what a tangled web. Oh, damn it. I did it again. Son of a bitch. I gotta go pushing that button. Let's have it. Oh, it's going to take me a minute to find that. We'll come. Oh, all right. Where did they go? We are and we are not. Boop, boop, boop. And here's Cuban. Through House Charter Resolution 992. Sorry about the hold up there. There we go. Now we're going to get into entitlement holder. Entitlement holder means a person identified in the records of a security intermediary as the person having a security entitlement against the security intermediary. If a person acquires a security entitlement by virtue of Section 8-501B2 or 3, that person is the entitlement holder. Subsection 8-501B2 or 3. B. Except as otherwise provided in subsection D and E, a person acquires a security entitlement if a securities intermediary 3 becomes obligated under other law, regulation, or rule to credit a financial asset to the person's security account. And number 17, security entitlement means the right and property interest of an entitlement holder with respect to a financial asset specified in Part 5. And number 14, securities intermediary means I, a clearing corporation, or 2, a person including a bank or broker that in the ordinary course of its business maintains securities accounts for others and is acting in that capacity. 5. Clearing corporation means 1. A person that is registered as a clearing agency under the federal securities laws, or 2, a Federal Reserve Bank, or 3, any other person that provides clearance or settlement services with respect to financial assets that would require it to register as a clearing agency under the federal securities laws, but for an exclusion or exemption from the registration requirements if its activities as a clearing corporation include promulgation of rules are subject to regulations by a federal or state government authority. What really happens when a court case happens in a court case and why you can win? Oh, every security the public issues to you is surely your security, regardless of who issued them. Only you can provide the labor, equity, and credit. Do public corporations have credit or equity to post a bond without authorization from an estate? Here's what really happens. The prosecutor presents an indictment security to the court, U.S. Trust Judge Tim Terrible, which deposits it generally in a court's books and issues a case number, which creates the case trust with the United States as the presumed beneficiary and the court as depository institution. That indictment is actually an assessment and option dealing with specific performance in the future. A security future defined under the Trust Indenture Act of 1939, Title 15 U.S.C. 78C, a bet against future performance. The question is, who's going to underwrite, perform on the bond? First, they need a trustee. So they go fishing, but they don't cast a line or bait a hook. They issue a summons or a warrant, more futures, more bets against future performance. How do they intend to hijack as trustee? You're a straw man naturally because, like any vessel, it comes with a surety, a grantor. Your estate, that's what they are really targeting as surety for the case bond until you appear and declare your name. They cannot issue the case bond and start making dividends, right? Wrong. They issued the bonds. Don't touch that button, damn it. Wrong. They issued the bonds when they issued the case number. So, until you enter the court and grant them the presumption of jurisdiction, they are on the hook because they voluntarily committed securities fraud by issuing worthless securities without an underwriter. And they also engaged in conspiracy to obstruct U.S. tax laws because they are liable for the taxes on the capital gains until you consent. And they have no intentions of reporting the gain, the OID value of the bond. How do we know? They don't report any of the case bonds because they consider them to be original issue, which are non-taxable under the Securities Act of 1933. The public cannot claim your securities or else they would suffer a hellish capital gains tax liability. So they seek to control your securities by presuming that they are the beneficiary and you are the trustee once you sign that appearance bond. They have an underwriter, the estate trust through the straw man, SSK trust, so they are off the hook for the securities fraud. And they have a trustee, the straw man, who is responsible for paying the taxes. So they're off the hook for the tax fraud. This is why they'll do anything to get your signature on that appearance bond as a defendant trustee. If you do not consent, they have an enormous problem. The case bond becomes a RE issue, a secondary offering of the original issue, your estate bond, the birth bond issued by the Treasury and traded for currency with the Fed upon your birth. A secondary offering falls under the Securities Exchange Act of 1934 and is not tax exempt. So the entire fidelity fraud where they sold the case bond is in jeopardy. This is a catastrophe for the court. Do you think this knowledge could mean power? Knowledge is power when dealing with these people, as the father told us. People have trouble seeing that everything the public issues with our name on it is a security feature based on the presumption that our estate will pay in the future. They think that unless we issue the paper, it's not ours. They don't fully appreciate the difference between ownership and security interest. This is understandable. We weren't born knowledgeable. The Warburgs intended that we remain in the dark. An owner holds legal title, meaning he's liable for taxes, insurance, upkeep, etc. In other words, he's responsible for performing for all the grunt work, which means he's the trustee by definition. But he doesn't see this because he doesn't really understand trust law. And after all, he's the owner. He's living the American dream. Thinking about that, we have been conned into dreaming about ownership, the obligation to perform. The Rockefellers must be laughing all the way to the bank. In contrast, the beneficiary has a security interest, meaning he gets paid or else. He enjoys the distribution of the trust property, or he fires the trustee and all the title and parties merge in him, which is a foreclosure. That's how he takes the property. The court exists to enforce security interest. That's what admiralty is about. That's why patriots lose in court. Read the special maritime rules regarding in rem procedures. So, if you continue to believe that they are not your securities because you did not issue them, then you are destined for problems. Here's an analogy that may help. It's like when a husband takes control of his wife's money. He doles out 100 so she can buy him beer. When she returns, he asks her for the change. It's her money, but he's pulling the strings and making the rules. The trust directives, just like the Department of the Treasury. Then one day he comes home and finds the locks changed and the cops waiting for him. The wife is still buying the household goods, but now she's back in control of the trust funds because the beneficiary, the wife, decided she would fire the trustee. In other words, one way or another, the estate paying the bills, but one way or the other, the estate is paying the bills. But either the public controls the funds using coercion, presumption, and trickery to get you to consent, or you agree to pay up front and take them out of the loop. This is why it's better to get dragged in and have the burden of proof on them rather than to show up and volunteer. Unless you are completely confident in your knowledge and information in this email. This explains why we do have a security agreement. When you execute a proper security agreement, most of them are flawed, unfortunately. A proxy with the standing in admiralty, unlike the living man operating on your behalf, agrees to pay the straw man debt in return for a security interest in its property up to a limit, usually $100 billion. Once perfected and assigned to another proxy or proper proxy, you gain standing to pay the same bills the public would pay, but you will be paying them directly on your authorization, banker's acceptance, rather than being coerced by a third party. Either way, payment is extracted from your estate funds held in trust at the DTC, the Depository Trust Clearinghouse. Prior to that, they presume to tap those funds on your behalf using pledges, and then they solicit your cooperation in fulfilling the pledge or pledges by volunteering your estate when you sign for the straw man. Hence, the estate does not consent. Oh, almost pushed that button again. I'm gonna have to get something else to drink, guys. We'll be back. We're getting into the nitty-gritty today. These first 3 videos this morning are gonna be stellar.